Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In this video we'll have a look at how to install Palo Alto Panorama Management Server on version 10, which is the latest version on VMware Workstation on my laptop. I've got quite a few versions downloaded here, but we're going to go with version 10, which is the latest version, and we'll right click it and select open with VMware Workstation. Next we can give it a name, and I will stick to the default, and we can give it a storage path, but I'll stick to the default as well. And we will now click import. It's currently importing now, and once it's imported we will turn it on. It's an OVA appliance and it's the one that's provided for VMware vSphere, but I've already tried it and tested it and it works a treat with VMware Workstation as well. This version is not licensed, but the version 9 is licensed, and I've integrated 2 firewalls with version 9 Panorama. And I've completely set it all up with the template stacks and device groups, and it works absolutely perfectly fine. So you can use your VMware Workstation as a Panorama management server. So my laptop is my Panorama management server, and then I've got 2 physical Palo Alto firewalls. If you can download the Panorama virtual appliance, and if you don't have the physical kit like the physical firewalls, you can download the virtual firewalls and you can have both that way. Then you just need to set it up correctly on your VMware Workstation in regards to putting interfaces into the right VM networks, etc. The install is now completed. Next we will click on Edit Virtual Machine Settings, and here what I'm going to do is change my network adapter to use custom and go with VMnet 2, because my Windows 10 client is in VMnet 2 as well. Let's click OK on that. And now that it's in VMnet 2, let's power on the virtual machine. It will take a while powering it up and starting all of its services, so I will pause the video and I will restart it once it's all completed. The Panorama appliance has now booted up, but we will go straight to the web GUI interface and log in from there. I've got Windows 10 client up and running, and I've also got a browser up and running, and I've already browsed to 192.168.1.1 and it looks like you can reach it absolutely fine, so I'll click on Let's Continue to this web page. And here it will ask me to log in, which the username and password is admin by default, and it will ask me to change the password before it allows me to log in again. Now it's asking me to change the password here, so let's do that. And it looks like it has changed the password, so we just need to log in, so I'll click login here, and we will log in with the new credentials, and that should allow me to log in. Now this dialog is stating that there are no device groups created, so basically it's a prompt to say create a device group now that you're logged in. So we just need to click OK here, and it's now creating an administrative session before it will log me in. In the meanwhile, what we can do is go to the CLI and see if we can log in there with our new credentials as well. And this confirms we can. And from here, amongst many other things with the CLI, we can change the IP address as well. If I type configure, and if I change my IP address, it means I can change it to an IP address from a subnet on my physical home network address if I wanted to. And this is so I can use my physical laptop to log into Panorama with, rather than using the Windows 10 client, as it's just a lot quicker this way and more responsive using the physical host. And you have one less virtual machine running and using up resources. So the physical laptop is a lot more quicker than using the VMnet client in my case anyway, on my laptop anyway. To change the IP address, the CLI command is set, and then it's device config, and you can use tabs to complete statements, and then it's system IP address, and then type the IP address. Next, if we specify the default gateway, mine will be 192.168.0.1. I'm not going to apply this, as I'm still going to use my Windows 10 VM client instance, since we are already logging in from there. It's just to demonstrate how this is done from the CLI. And then we can specify our DNS settings as well. For me, it will be 8.8.8.8. After this, we just hit enter. By the looks of it, there's a mistake here, and we just need to add the server statement before DNS server address. So we will remove 8.8.8.8 and add the server statement. Then it needs primary or secondary actually. Then we will specify the IP followed by enter, and it's happy with that. To finish it off, we just need to commit the change by typing commit. But I won't be doing that, so I can continue using my Windows 10 client to manage the appliance in this case. Let's go back to the Windows 10 client and let's have a look at the browser. And actually, after all that, I may commit my IP change because the Windows 10 client isn't responsive. So if we go back to Panorama and we can commit the change here, and instead of using the Windows 10 client, I can use my physical laptop browser to log in with, because the IP address I'm committing, 192.168.0.150, is in the same subnet as my home network. So if I bridge the network adapter, I can log in from my browser on the physical laptop instead. And once you hit commit, it does take a good minute or two to commit changes. Next, if we go to VM and settings here, I just need to change my network adapter and change it to bridged. So if I change it to bridged to bridge it with my physical NIC, I can access the Panorama appliance and my browser on my physical Windows 10 laptop. So now that's done, next I'll open up Google Chrome browser and I'll log in from the Google Chrome browser, and it should be a lot more responsive. 192.168.1.50 and enter, and I'll click on advance and proceed, and it looks like it's going to connect. And now we will log in with the username and password. And again at the top it's telling me to create a device group, so let's click OK and it will log us into the Panorama interface now. It just needs to take a second or two. The first thing we get is a welcome dialog notification, and it's telling us about the latest summary features with Panorama version 10, and we can close it from here. And let's close telemetry data collection as well, which is to do with cloud-based apps for monitoring and managing the firewalls, but we don't need it. Now it's asking me to retrieve the Panorama license, but we don't have one, so we'll click OK and watch it fail to retrieve one. But it will also ask us to set this up manually. So if I click complete manually, I can add a license if I did have one. So next guys, it just tells us how to retrieve an offline license, and we just need to click OK, and now we are free to roam the GUI interface and we can check what's what, such as adding a firewall and configuring them from here. So we are on the Panorama dashboard page, and you can see at the top we have 4 menu items, which are dashboard, then ACC, then monitor, and finally Panorama. And if we click on Panorama, we can create the device groups from here as the very first step. We just need to click on device group option here, and at the bottom we have got the add options. If we click on add and give it a name, let's call it home devices. I've not got any firewalls to add in here, I'm just going to create the device group itself. Let's click OK, and that's now been created. And as soon as the device group was created, at the top it has also added 2 menu items called policies and objects. The policies is where you configure your security policies. You can create your pre and post rules here, your NAT rules, and all of these down here as well. Decryption policies, QoS policies, application override policies, etc. Tunnel inspection. And in objects, it's where you create your security objects, such as your address objects, your ranges, and everything else listed in here. Now if we go back to Panorama and we go to templates, which is just above device groups, we can create a template stack at the bottom here. We can call it home devices again, and we have no firewalls to add here, so we'll just click on OK to create it, and it's now created a template stack. And as soon as I created the template stack, at the top we have 2 new additional options as well, which are network and device. And if we click on network, we can see the configuration options within here, and it's all to do with networking, such as we can configure our interfaces in here, zones, VLANs, virtual wires, virtual routers, IPsec tunnels, and all of these here as well. And with device, this is more system settings for the firewall itself. For example, high availability, login banners, host names, and everything else very much system related. Virtual systems here, and there's quite a lot of settings in here actually. If we hover back to Panorama to look at the configuration here, which is configuration of the Panorama itself, and we have seen already the device groups and template stacks are created in here. If you need an overall summary of all your managed firewalls, under Manage Devices there is a summary option. You would see all your firewalls in here, and you can see which device groups and templates are assigned to those firewalls amongst a ton of other useful information. You can also see the serial numbers of the firewalls as well, so it's a good place to find useful information in. And if you had lots of device groups and template stacks, you can actually filter for these from within the menu items. So for example, if we go to network options, now the template is already selected with home devices because that's the only one we have created. But if you have lots of these templates, you can drop down here and you can select the template you want to work with before you start to configure these options here. And it's exactly the same for device groups as well. If we go to policies, we can see the shared device group. This is the parent device group and is shared amongst all devices. And if we click the drop down here, we can see the one we created here called home devices. But you may have hundreds of these, and if you do have hundreds of these in here, you can just search for them within here. So you can type in whatever you wanted to search for and it will find it for you this way instead, rather than going down the whole list. And that's that for this video, guys. And although this is a VMware Workstation instance, it's a fully operational Panorama appliance. Well, to the extent I've tested it with anyway, so you can fully manage devices with it, so it's definitely worth installing and playing with. And that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Speak to you soon.